What's up, everybody? My name's Ashley, founder of the Brown Gyal Diary, and I am so excited today. I am beyond excited because you guys are tuned in to our first ever video podcast episode. And that means we have so much in store for you guys. So let's jump right into it. I want to introduce my co host, Tiara. Tiara, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Tiara. I'm part of the BGD team and I am our editor-in-chief. So if you've ever dealt with the blog, read the blog, that's the piece that I work on. I'm really excited today. We have an amazing guest. It's so nice to be here and get to chat, and I'm really excited. So I would love Shivani to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Shivani. I am a Trinidadian-born Canadian girly. I don't know where to start. I guess I was a model full-time for 10 years internationally. I've worked with some of the biggest brands in the world. Super content and happy with that career. Then I was a journalist for about 2 years. Found out real quick that that is not how you make money. So I decided to not do that career anymore. And now I'm a content marketing manager at a tech company in Toronto. It's a tech event company, and I'm trying to think of what else. I love my cat. I love my husband, and I love Brown Gyal Diary.
Woo! That was amazing.
I love that.
Well, I want to start by saying, obviously, first, thank you for being here. And I know how it is as a marketer. Like, you don't have time. You're just like always doing something. So I appreciate you being here. And I think what I really want to start with is the reason we wanted you here, because you know how much I love you. Like, anytime I do something, I always like have you at like top of mind. When we started our blog, we featured you. We had you as a speaker at our brunch. Like, you know how much love I have for you. We always stay connected. And the real reason that I wanted to have you on here is because recently you've just been doing like a lot of amazing things online. And I think one of the most amazing things that you've been doing is like challenging the narrative in our community, within the Indo-Caribbean community, of what perfection really has to look like, right? And I think it's so important that we do those things because there's so many stigmas, there's so many expectations, there's so many different things that we as Indo-Caribbean, as a Caribbean community as a whole, have to uphold to, right? And really what I wanted to do is just like learn more about you, that journey, and really what kind of striked your interest in really getting online and having those difficult conversations.
That's a really good question. I guess my first sort of ever experience with adversity that I can remember is just experiencing shadeism. Like being a younger Indo-Caribbean girl. I was born in Trinidad. I moved here when I was 4, and I was definitely one of the darkest people in my family. And many people in my family never let me forget it. And I think that when that happens, if you're somebody who's experienced shadeism, you really never feel seen. And I never felt seen. And that also goes along with feeling worthy. And so I think when social media became a thing, Facebook came out when I was like, I want to say Facebook came out when I was like 17 or 18 already. But, it was kind of like an opportunity to feel seen. Like I felt like even if I don't have a lot of followers, who cares, right? And that also was what kind of made me want to pursue modeling when I was younger as well. I'm growing up in Canada at that time. It's like I never saw any people of color. If I saw a brown person, they didn't look like me. I didn't feel any representation from Bollywood, and everyone in Bollywood was like super light as well.
Fair skin, yeah, exactly.
Like I had like Harold Hussein on the Weather Network, and that's who I had. Like that was my representation. You know what I mean? It's like Natasha Ramsey.
I mean, that's a very important job.
Like,
That's a very important job.
It looked just like him one day.
Yeah, and Natasha Ramsahai, like that's who I had.
Yeah.
So it was really hard, and when I got the opportunity to start modeling, I was like, I'm gonna do this, and I'm always gonna talk about uncomfortable things. I'm always gonna talk about what people don't want to talk about. I'm always going to use this platform to do more, because I'm honestly not like a fashion makeup girl. Like I don't really care. Like it's never been my thing. Like I think it's cool, and I think it's like important, and it's a lot of work, but it's just never been what my content's been about or what I want to talk about. So I've never really done it in that way. But I just knew that like I had to talk about stuff. And that was what kind of always drove me to talk about it, was just feeling super unseen when I was younger, and knowing that now I finally had the opportunity to be seen, and I wasn't just going to be seen, I was going to be heard.
Yeah, and I think actually shadeism is one of the topics that we've always said that we want to touch on in it, but it's always been something very sensitive. It's like, how do you start that conversation? How do you start having those different types of talks, because I think even similarly, like for myself, like when I was in high school, and you notice this like as Trinidadian and Guyanese, like you can know there's a noticeable difference of the fairness of the skin, right? And I had that experience too, where I was always like the darkest, always the tallest, always the curviest, and it became very difficult. And I think like a lot of what you were saying, it starts at a very young age. So when you started getting, and I know we know a lot about your modeling journey, and you do talk about it here and there, but why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience? Like when you first started to model, what are some of the things that you noticed like came up for you that kind of maybe like transcended from your childhood or like growing up and having those ideas?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, like, the shadeism wasn't really a thing in the industry, because when I started modeling, you know, this was 10, even probably 15 years after, like, Naomi Campbell, after, you know, all these other, so the shadeism wasn't really a thing in that sense. But being Indian or having Indian heritage was definitely a thing, because, you know, as an Indo-Caribbean, we all live in this world where it's like, you're not Indian enough, you're not Caribbean enough, and then if you're a tri-identity kid, like, you're not Canadian enough either, right? There's always something we're working with. And so that was never made more clear to me than, like, as a model. It was always just brought up. It was very obvious, and I just felt like that was always like, who am I? Who are you? Like, what's your identity, you know? So that's what I always dealt with, because like I would go to a casting in New York, and it would be like 30 white girls and 5 black girls and 2 Asian girls and me. And that was it. Like when I first started, like there were not that many brown models. There were certainly not that many Indo-Caribbean models. I know one other girl in the world that was doing it when I was doing it as an Indo-Caribbean model, like at the level that I was doing it at. And she was actually way more successful than me. There were not a lot of darker skinned brown girls as well. So it was really like, I was kind of a token girl for a lot of things, which, you know, credit to my agents. Like, they saw that was an opportunity and they ran with it. But yeah, like that was kind of like where the issues came from me. And like really having to prove yourself that, like, I don't want you to just book me because like I'm the brown girl. I'm actually a really good model. And like, I actually like talk about a lot of other stuff too. And like, you know, so the industry is so different now. Like now they want you to have a personality. Now they always ask you what you do outside of modeling. Now, you know, the casting world is really different. But back then I really felt like I always had to just like prove that I was more than just like your token brown girl at the casting or at the job.
And it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. Like, I'm sure that was very stressful for you, because there's not a lot of people to like connect within that space at the time. So you're kind of literally just going through it on your own and just like going through the motions. And then it's not until after where you're kind of like, oh, like, shoot, like, what did I actually like, was that traumatic? Like, I don't think you realize until after that you're actually like, I was just in a traumatic situation.
Yeah.
And like one thing, we were at the ICA Leadership Summit. Yeah. And one thing that you had mentioned was like, I actually don't talk about me being, like you were saying, like, I don't talk about being a model at all really anymore.
No, I don't.
And that was something that struck me, because I'm like, that's such a big part of like your identity or how people view you. But it's something that you are kind of just like, I wouldn't say maybe you don't want to think about it anymore, but it's a big part of your kind of just like, I just don't want that to be me, in a sense.
Yeah, I feel like I did it so long, full time, for 10 years almost. And it really was who I was. And then when the pandemic happened and I moved back to Toronto and I was trying to figure out who I am as a journalist and all this stuff, I felt like people didn't take me seriously when I spoke about it. And a lot of times, like, you know, there's a lot of people that call themselves models.
I was going to say, I'm a model, you know, like, I'm a model.
But a lot of people say that.
Online.
And I was like,
model bookings for bookings. DM me.
Right? And so I was just like, all right, I don't want people to think I'm that, because I'm actually like, I modeled at a very high level for a very long time. I'm very proud of my work, but I felt like people wouldn't see that because I don't post about it as much anymore. I also don't model full time anymore. And I was just like, I don't want people to either, you know, put me in the wrong crowd thinking that I'm somebody that is pretending to be a model, but I actually really was. And also just like, I didn't want people to judge me for it. So I stopped talking about it as much. And I still work with a lot of really big brands, and I should still be talking about it because I want there to be more Indo-Caribbean models, 100%. And I want people to know that it's a real career and it's very serious and it's something you can do. But But I also don't want conversations to be derailed to be just about that, because that's often what happens.
I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Awkward for a second.
That's what we're here to talk about.
No.
But like,
we want to talk about everything.
In general, like usually when I bring that up to like somebody I'm just meeting, it's like then that's all they want to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'm like, ugh, like, and then they're like, oh my God, what is the industry like? And da-da-da. And it's fine. Like, I do want to tell people because it's a job that not a lot of people have. And I would like more people to know about it. But at the same time, I'm like, but there's like a lot more that I do that I really want to talk about that I also think is really important. And I just don't want it to overshadow everything else.
So I'm curious about like a lot of what you said there, and especially about that whole piece about identity. Like there's a huge crossover between like your personal identity, and it's like people associate, Shivani's a model and then kind of just run with that, but it's like there's so many other parts of us, right? It's just in general to all of us. It's like, Ashley and Tiara are part of BGD, but that's not all we do. That's not our whole personality, for example. So I'm just like, I'm curious about how you have kind of made that distinction for yourself, especially now, kind of transitioning out and doing other, you do a lot of other great things and stuff like that. How do you kind of navigate your identity and how you kind of deal with people, and approach that nowadays to kind of, just sort of shift the focus and also remind people that I'm more than just this one thing. Like I'm a lot of other things.
Yeah, I think, stopping it full time helped a lot, obviously, because I do other things now and there's so much more to talk about. I think also just being like really systematic in my approach to a lot of things. I'm a marketer, so I do things based on data a lot of the time. And so I was like, I want to start my newsletter. So I started my newsletter, and that's where I talk about like tech and career, social justice and politics, and then like mindset and development stuff. I do talk about how modeling sometimes like fits into that, but I was like, if I want to be known for something else, or I want people to consume my content and think about something else, I have to be really organized about how I go about this, right? And especially with some of the stuff I talk about, I'm like, I don't just want to mouth off. I have to be really like cognizant of how I'm bringing about this information. And so that's what I tried to do. And I also realized like it was not just about me creating content, but also supporting other people who create content that I like, people that I learn from, people that I believe in. Like I'll always share Brown Gyal Diary posts because I love everything that you all do, ICA posts, or just like, anything social justice related. I'm like, I'm very aware of what I'm not an expert on, but what I want to share things about. And so I honestly, I did that even when I was full-time modeling. And my agents would always be like, what if you have some Southern clients that like don't want to work with you because they talk about this and that? I'm like, then I don't want to work with them, babe. Like it's really that simple. So, I've always been like that, and I'm always kind of juke fire like that, but that's just who I am. Yeah.
Because I feel like even nowadays, like when you think about like, I feel like nowadays, and like you're obviously on social media a lot, we're all on social media a lot, and people can feel like the lack of authenticity instantly, right? And I think like that's one of the really cool things about you is like Tiara and I beforehand, we were talking about one of the posts you made, and it's so funny because it was a post about like a museum of my failures, right? And I remember saying to Tiara, I'm like that's a lot of failures, but literally, because I'm like, but in honesty, she was like, in a funny way, we laughed about it, but I'm like, damn, that's a lot of failures, but it's true, because we kind of like, in a way, we don't embrace them in a way that like it was a lesson, and it's actually a great part of my journey. And if I didn't have these failures, then I would be like a pretty boring person.
Well, and I've tried a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I haven't been successful at a lot of them, but I learned a lot about a lot of them. And I've also been extremely successful with a lot of them. So it's like, that was just, I wanted to let people know that like, I got inspired by that post. I tagged the person that inspired me for that. But I wanted just people to know that like, you should be open about these things that you've tried, because that, being able to try things and learn from them and get even the things that you're like, okay, that sucked, I failed at it and I didn't learn anything of it, but just the act of getting back up and being resilient, like that's a skill, right?
Yeah.
Grit is a skill. Having grit and being like, you know what? Okay, that didn't work. On to the next one. Like, I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. You should cry about it.
For 5 minutes.
You should process your feelings
to master it too.
Yeah,
right?
and then you should just go. And I think working in tech has really helped me do that, because things move so quickly, and I've worked at 4 different software companies.
Yeah.
And there's just no time to sit there and like beat on yourself. You just have to go on to the next thing.
And I think that is a big thing. Like, let's jump into the mental health piece. Let's do a mental health check real quick.
One more thing, because I wanted to say, this is what I wanted to say about the post. Because I have my piece about the post. My thing with the post was, I really liked the post, because what I was saying to Ashley, too, when we were talking about it, is, like, I think it was the way that you put it all out there, right? And I'm like, okay, it's a lot of failures, for example, right? But I'm like, more times online, what do? We do all the highlights. So we say, I did this, and this, all the things I succeeded at. But we don't write out all the things that we failed at. Because more times we kind of just want to, like, sweep it under the rug and forget it happened. But I'm like, if we think about it, like, all of us, like, anybody, any person, like, and you really wrote it down the same way, right? It's like, yeah, we've all failed at a lot of things. But I like the fact that you did it and put it out there, because it's also normalizing it. Because I feel like we don't like to talk about what we started and didn't do well at, or what we started and failed at, or what we thought was going to be our next thing, or, like, you know, sometimes we get so passionate about something, like, yeah, this is my next thing, and then it goes completely left. But we don't like to talk about.
We don't like to say it. Yeah,
we don't like to highlight.
And that comes from childhood, I think, too, right?
I was gonna say, yeah.
Like, that's a culture thing. We all sweep it under the rug, and we're like, okay, well, let's not talk about that or whatever. But, like, that's not getting us anywhere. We have to talk about it. And I am so proud of everything that I've failed at. I'm so proud of it.
You failed at great things.
And I tried it, and, like, I don't see it as failure. They're all experiences. I've learned something from all of them. I've been very successful at other things because I failed at those things. Because I learned so much from all those experiences, and, like, it taught me exactly what I want to do and where I want to be. And, like, yes, I'm still on that journey figuring things out. But the whole thing is, like, figuring out, like, and I tell students this when I meet them, too. I'm like, it's not about what you're studying in school right now, unless maybe if you're doing something super specific, like if you want to be a doctor. But what you're supposed to do at, like, university is learn how you learn.
Exactly. Right? That's so true. That's the number one thing you take out of it. Like, who am I? Like, what is dedication? And what is organization? Like, all these skills, that's really what you take out of it.
And that's what all those experiences taught me. It taught me how I go through something, how I get over it, what I learned from it when I fail. Like, I love talking about failure because I think it's so important. And, like, you fail forward. You can fail forward. Failure does not always mean that you're moving back. Agreed. You can absolutely fail 100%. Forward.
I feel like most failures, I mean, give or take, are usually, like, give or take, are fail forward, right? Because you don't realize until later on, like, how beneficial. It sounds so cliche, but you actually don't realize, like, I'm like, one of the things that stood out to me in your journey, and we've talked about many times, is, like, when you applied for your master's, you know, like, in the Indo-Caribbean community, getting your master's, well, obviously, if you don't have your education, you have nothing, which, of course, it is very important. It's true. Like, if you don't have your education, they always say you don't have nothing. And that is such a big thing. Like,
it was, like, probably one of the lowest moments of my whole life when I didn't get into that master's. But the greatest thing about it was, and I feel like it was, like, weird because I was so embarrassed to tell my parents, but they were actually my biggest supporters in that moment. My like, I thought my parents would be like, what the hell? But my mom was like, hey, you tried. It's fine.
That's the number one thing,
It's fine. Like, and that made me realize that as much as they did have that, like, Indo-Caribbean parent vibe, I still felt comfortable enough to go to them and say, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't make it. I didn't do it. I'm sorry. Like, this is what you came to this country for, and I didn't do it. And they were like, it's fine. Like, chill, you're good.
I can't even tell you how many times I think about the things that, like, I did secretly. I mean, not so many things. I was a pretty good child, but, like, behind my parents' back, where I'm like, if I just told my mom, like, she would have just done the things that we needed to do.
Your mom is, like, cool.
Yeah, she's pretty chill. That's why I wonder, why didn't I just mention it?
I would think so,
why didn't
my mom had me when she was 40, so different.
My parents had me young, but they were still pretty strict, because the thing is, it worked in reverse for me, where people were like, oh, you have young parents, so they would be cool about letting you do things. But it was reversed, because my parents were young, and they were like,
I know what I did.
I know what happened. Yeah, exactly. They were like, we were there not too long ago. We know what goes on. Totally. The answer is no.
No, absolutely.
No, hard no. So that worked in
too.
reverse for me.
But yeah, I think that was a very low moment. When I first started therapy, that was the first thing I talked about with my therapist. I was like, I'm such a freaking loser. Like, how did I not get into this friggin' master's? Meanwhile, the master's program at McMaster only took 10 people.
Oh my God.
It was an extremely small program.
What was the program?
It was labor studies, which I'm still very interested. I did a ton of.
I'll still go.
But let's talk about.
I'll still go if they take me.
I would totally still go. But let's talk about what happened. You know what I did after that? I started doing labor activism in New York with the Model Alliance. We worked with everyone from garment workers to farm workers. And I was one of the contributors that contributed to a published academic paper with the Workers Institute of Cornell.
Exactly.
And we worked with Fordham Law School, and we published the very first study on models ever during COVID-19.
Congratulations.
And thank you.
Amazing.
And like my name is on that now,
Yeah.
so I don't know, maybe they'll take me now if I apply, because my name is on an American, like, you know,
you're too good for them.
high level schools, like academic paper. But you know what I mean?
True,
but that's what led to that. Like, if I never applied for that master's and was like super hurt by not getting in, maybe I wouldn't have tried so hard to, like, you know, still dive so deep into that labor studies work.
That makes sense.
I don't know.
Why did we stop like that? Okay. Should we do the mental health check now then?
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, okay. So, wait, I want to do that one.
Okay, go.
So, we were talking about this before we started, where we really want to, because mental health is such a big focus for BGD, and I know it's important to a lot of us just in general, we want to have a good little mental health check for everyone, right? We're in the space, we're talking about things that, you know, like failures and our perfection and things that we struggle with. So, we want to check in on everybody and how we're doing. So, Shivani, mental health check. How are you feeling today, scale of 1 to 10?
I feel like you guys are making me feel like an 8.5 out of 10 right now.
Oh, that's so
The
nice.
the other 1.5 points is just the regular everyday depression.
I know,
But everything else,
everything
plays
else,
of daily life.
But
That's
y'all are
gotta stay.
yeah, but y'all are making me feel great. So,
What about you?
What about you?
I think the same thing. I feel the same way. Because I was telling Ashley today, too. I'm like, I was just in the office the past 2 days. And I was feeling really lazy today. I was feeling really tired. But I'm like, I know I'm going to have a good time. So I just need to, like, get out of my mental hurdle.
Get ready.
So I was probably at, like, a 5 earlier. But then, like, I got in the car and, like, you know, we laughed a bit.
around.
And then we got here. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm at, like, an 8 now, too. I'm a little
Good.
hungry. So that'll probably push me to a
Yeah,
10.
I'm sorry.
But otherwise, like, I'm pretty good. I'm really happy.
Food's gonna be no, literally, yeah. Like, I am feeling like a 10, honestly, and I feel like I'm feeling like a 10 because just like what you said, Shiv. Like, I feel like one of the number one things, and it sounds so, again, super cliche, but I really feel like I have been learning how to, like, not look at something as like a major failure. Like, I have over the years. Like, I've all my life I've suffered from depression, and I've always, like, had to find coping mechanisms. And recently, I just started journaling, and Tiara knows this.
We're so proud of her for
because
journaling
you know
consistency.
why? Yeah, like the
game
consistency.
changer.
I'm so proud of her.
It is a
I'm
game
so proud
changer
of
because
her.
you know why? Like, really and truly, I am like so like laser cut on like a calendar schedule, especially like being a parent. I'm always like
Totally.
Yeah,
I am
fair.
always
That's
like
fair.
8. I have to get up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. latest. Like, I'm getting up at 6
I don't know
a.m.
how she does that.
I just have.
wild.
I don't know how she does
so
that.
early.
Yeah.
I'm
like,
not a morning person.
Same.
I think we spoke about that one time,
Yeah.
like about being morning people.
I'm
like,
not a morning
If I
person.
wake up at 7 a.m., I feel like death, okay? Like,
Yeah.
I
yeah,
don't know
like
how
I
you
have
do
to get
it.
up. Like, my life is so structured, and I'm like, I have to get up at 6 a.m. I have to drink my water. I have to write in my journal.
Yeah.
I have to write about my mental health. I have to play my music. Like, I play my spa music in the morning, but it just never happens that way.
Right.
And what would happen if I woke up at 7 a.m.? I'd be like, my life is in shambles.
And I keep telling her that she
the day.
Yeah.
So
that
like
way.
recently, like
Yeah.
actually journaling has like really helped me like not feel that way and just feel like I can journal at 12 p.m. if I want.
Yeah.
Like, I
Absolutely.
actually don't just have to journal at like
From
6
7:10 to 7:15. You
Yeah,
can definitely
that's literally
journal
how my schedule
whenever-
was.
Yeah, whenever you feel inspired, you can just like journal.
You can also just like make it easy for yourself too, right? Like, I have just like a note on Notion where sometimes I'll just go in and I'll say daily thought or whatever, and I just put in one sentence if that's all I can do for that day, and it really helps.
Yeah, and I think like
That's good too.
yeah,
It's
like I
just-
feel
it's
like
the daily practice that you have to get into.
The habit, yeah.
So what would you say are some of like your number one habits that you've like adapted like from early on in your personal life and career? Like, what are some things that you always do?
I mean, talking to a friend or talking to someone is I feel like I always have to get things out. It doesn't help me to keep things in. Therapy, for sure. You gotta go to therapy.
Check out a therapist.
You have to go to. I know people that have used that sheet as
Directory
well.
is
That
linked in
directory,
our
yeah,
bio.
it's been very helpful. So therapy for sure. What else? Journaling, definitely journaling. Sometimes not reacting right away is the biggest thing that I've noticed. Like, I
Yeah,
tend to
it's
react
big.
right away, and so I've been like, okay. My husband has taught me a lot about that. Kind of just like taking a second, just being like, okay, I'm very emotional right now. Let me just think about it, and let me come back to this in even an hour. And
We're
let me
working
just
on that
see how
one.
I feel then, right?
We're working on that.
Yeah, I need to work on it still. I'm still very like reactive, but
yeah.
you know, taking a beat has really helped me a lot. But yeah, and I think sometimes too, just like if I need to just veg out, if I just need to be like, okay, I'm gonna get under the covers and just lay there, then that's what I do. I'm like, if I have the time to do that, I'll just do that and I'm very much try to not feel guilty about it.
It's so important to take time for yourself and not feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I feel like that point about that, like, that's something that I noticed comes up a lot lately, where I think, like, people are in this feeling of guilt whenever they take time, or, like, we're so, I don't know, conditioned at this point to, like, work. What's the next thing? Okay, you went to work today. Okay, when you came home, what did you do next? You know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, but when did you take time for yourself?
Yeah.
Did you eat? Like, did you eat today?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not
Did you
just
drink
Starbucks,
water? Yeah,
not
like, did
just
you drink
iced
water
coffee?
today?
Like, iced coffee is not a meal.
You know what I mean?
Like,
Did you, like, just things like that? And it's so important. So I'm glad that you mentioned, like, that point about just being like, I'm not going to feel guilty about getting into my bed and getting under the covers, because if I need that, I need that.
Yeah, I think it's like something I notice is that I will work my 9 to 5 and then feel very guilty if all I did that day was work my 9 to 5. I'm like, how crazy is that?
It's so true.
You're already giving away 40 hours of your week, of your life, and you're feeling like not good enough at the end of it when you're contributing to someone else's company. That's crazy.
Madness.
That's capitalism. Like, it worked. It made me feel like
capitalism really popped off
today.
Yeah,
you know, like,
right? And it's like, and it's just like a major burnout now too. Like, people are just like extremely burnt out. And like, even recently, one of the things that I found that I had to do was I just created like a private social media account where, like, again, like similar to journaling. I just did I follow you yet?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I was like, oh my god, this might be awkward. But
no, you did. But I thought it was a fake account.
Yeah. Oh, yes. A lot of people thought it was a fake account, but I was
I hesitated.
no, because I'm like, honestly, like, sometimes it just feels so nourishing to just actually be like, I just want to like be like, I just want to be at level. Like, I don't want to have to feel like I have to always go above and beyond. And I feel like one of the things that I'm sure you feel, like, not only are you an influencer online, like, whether you know it or not, because I feel like sometimes you don't even.
I hate the word influencer.
I knew you were gonna say that, but like, but you really are, right? Like, I feel like those are one of the biggest things. Like, you are like a super change maker in our community, like in the Indo-Caribbean communities. If you are, but like literally, like, you a lot of Indo-Caribbean girls, and just Caribbean girls and women in general, like, really do look up to who you are, what you do, what you're saying. And I think, like, there is a lot of pressure on that, you know, like, even us, like, with BGD, I feel like we know followers do not really equate too much, right? Like, it's really just an added additional pressure that, like, may give you money or it may not give you money, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it comes with a lot of weight. It comes with a lot of expectation, and it, again, comes with a lot of pressure. And I want to know, like, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate being an influencer?
Well, I hate that word.
I said it on purpose.
Okay, being a
woman of influence.
I really don't feel like I am, but
a person who's active online with a following.
That I can
a lot
do
of
that.
people that follow you.
I can do that. It is a responsibility, definitely, to, like, and that's why I just always try to stay on the right side. I try to be as authentic as possible. I try to make sure I speak about things or share resources and be kind of like as actionable as possible. But also at the same time, like, I can really only be myself. I'm really just a human, and like I can provide what I feel is necessary, but I'm also not perfect, right? Like, I am going to make mistakes, and like sharing that kind of stuff is also really important. And I'm also like, I don't have all the answers either, right? Like, a lot of people will message me sometimes about certain things, and I'm like, I'm not 100% sure how to help you. I'm not a therapist. Like, I don't, I can't give you like all these answers. Like, and people
But it's true. People will feel really entitled sometimes to somebody just because they're online and they're active, and feel
the
like
expectation of you
like,
is
I can
very
just
high.
And I
really
don't have that many followers. So I feel like it's even more intense for people that have way more followers than me. So
it's true, like, people that have like hundreds of
thousands,
millions.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what? How do you live I don't know. It's really wild. But I just try my best.
And has there ever been a situation where you've really felt, I know we have, like, I know there's been instances where we've really felt that pressure, especially like with something like BGD, where people, like, we're just a girl. I'm just a girl.
I'm
I'm just a
I'm
girl.
just a baby.
Okay, I'm just a baby.
girl.
Like
Yeah.
we're just three girls, 4 women, just like really trying to put this thing together. And
Yeah.
sometimes we get hit with so much pressure. Like when we
Yeah.
first started, there was so much pressure.
Yeah.
To like
Same.
have a certain expectation, and I think even within our community as Indo-Caribbean women, there is a lot of like,
Oh yeah.
what's the word?
Clashing?
Like
There's a
butting
lot
heads.
of like, there's a lot of butting heads. There's
Yeah.
a lot of like, not butting heads. There's a lot of like, comparison and jealousy and like expectation
Yes.
of like,
Totally.
there's no way you're actually the person that you say you are.
Right.
And I want to know like, how have you navigated something
Well,
like that?
all that matters is at the end of the night when I go to bed, I know who I am. I know what I
Fair.
did. And any
Cheers
of my
to that.
experiences,
Yeah,
like,
cheers.
you can't take that away from me. You can try as hard as you want, but I
Yeah.
know everything that I did. I have receipts for everything. So, like, you know, nobody, I'm sorry.
I
Like,
got the receipt.
you can't take any of that away
Period.
from me.
got the
Like,
checks to prove
you know,
it.
so you don't, like, I could say, I could flex a lot if I wanted to, but I just don't because it's not
Yeah.
who I am, but I know what I could flex on, you know? So I don't care about any of those people. Anybody that tries to tear me down like that, I'm like, whatever, screw you. But I stopped going on TikTok for a really long time because I was talking about a lot of Indo-Caribbean issues. And it just got like so vitriolic in the comments
Yes.
from like
Yeah.
people from Indians that aren't Indo-Caribbean.
I see that a lot.
And I was
on
like,
TikTok.
I can't handle this because the way that you're attacking, like, not just screw my character, whatever, I'm strong, but like my people, I was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not gonna mess with that at all. Like, that is not a conversation that I want to be in, and I don't want to create an environment where I'm allowing people to talk like that
Yeah,
about
and-
my people at all.
And that's like a big thing. Like even with somebody like you, like a woman of influence. a person with a lot of people that follow them, and just like being somebody that is so willing to say a lot of things that maybe a lot of us are actually just thinking. And I find that a lot too, like even with things like this or podcasts or even podcasts that I've done as well, like sometimes it's just really taking that step and saying the things that people are saying, right?
Have you ever regretted saying
Yeah, that's-
anything?
yeah.
Was there ever anything that you spoke up about? Or
There are things that I deleted. Yeah. Like, for example, I'll say it here because I feel like I'm in a safe space. But
You are.
Like, for
Alright.
example, I mean, anybody that's listening to this, I think will understand where I'm coming
Yeah.
from. But like when Miss India won Miss Universe, I just put out a video and I said, listen, this is great, but like we need to really think about like, first of all, what even are we doing with Miss Universe? Why is this a thing?
Yeah.
And second of all, the fact that every woman that's ever been Miss Universe India looks honestly borderline exactly the same. Like, if you look back from the last
I
20
can
years,
picture it in my head anyway.
like,
I feel
they're,
it's the Bollywood fair.
oh, there have been articles written
look.
about how they look so similar. And all I
Yeah.
was saying in my video was that, is this really representation? Because
Yeah.
she looks like a Bollywood actress. She's beautiful. She looks like a Bollywood actress. She speaks well, all of these things. But to me, like, that's not very representative of India, if we think about
Or
it.
the
Probably
universe.
I don't
Or-
think it's
or
what
the universe.
majority of India. I mean, I might
Right?
be wrong,
Yeah,
but I don't
true.
think that's what majority of people in India really actually.
Yeah,
Of
and so
course.
there were a few things there that I could have spoken on. Number one, she was Punjabi. That was the year that a lot of farmers' protests and things were happening. So
Oh,
for a
wow.
Punjabi person to win was actually a very big deal. And I should have thought of that. I should have thought of that in the context of like, this is also why people are happy. And
Yeah.
and I even said in my video, if you're happy about this girl, I do not want to take that away from you. You deserve to be happy.
Yeah.
But let's also use some critical thinking. And let's also think about, what does it represent that we still do these pageants? What does that mean? And also, what does it mean when the last 30 Miss Indias have looked almost exactly alike? What does that tell you? Like, we can be happy about things. Like, two things can be true, right? You can be happy about something and also question it, right? Like, people hate on me a lot when I talk about Canada because I think Canada is like, you know, a colonialist country that has so many issues and
It is.
whatever,
It
right?
is.
But people people will comment on shit all
the
the time, and I'm like, guys, I can be happy that like we moved to this country and like we were immigrants that are successful and whatever, and also say like, hey, I think Indigenous people deserve running water. Those two things are
Maybe.
not.
Yeah,
just,
they
just
don't-
maybe. Just
Yeah,
maybe,
you know,
right?
like, I'm
like any kind person.
Yeah, like I'm like, I never said like, so I just feel like that concept of like two things being true and like nuance and stuff, people just don't have that critical thinking
No.
ability. So that's what I try to inject as much as possible. But doing that on TikTok was really taking a lot of my happiness away. So I had to just like stop. after a while.
And TikTok is a scary place, though. Honestly,
Very scary place.
It is very.
It's a very scary place.
People will fight about anything, and I think people
they
on
love
TikTok,
the drama.
People on TikTok kind of things are really black and white on TikTok, where
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's either a yes or a no, and there's no sort of like you were saying, like critical thinking in between, where it's just like, okay, if you said this, then you are claiming this entire statement, and it's like, okay, I didn't say that.
Yeah,
there's actually layers to what I said.
Yeah, and people watch about 4 seconds of a TikTok and then make a comment or make it, and I'm like,
they
you didn't even watch the whole
damn
video.
Watch the whole thing. It's
so I'm like, you know what? I don't need to be talking about this stuff there if it's just going to be violent more than anything else. Like, I don't need to do that. So I did stop posting for a while. I'm posting back there. But what I did was try to restructure things to be from a learning standpoint. Like, to be from like, okay. So, for example, do you guys remember when that whole coffee filter thing came out and people were turning the filter on and being like, oh, I didn't know I was that. Like, I could do that.
Yes.
Like, they were putting the filter on and then turning it off and being like, oh, I didn't realize I was that light skin, basically.
Oh, yes, I remember.
So I commented, I made a video about that. And first I wanted to be like really angry about it because I was like, you guys you're playing dumb. Like, you're being pick-me's right now. Like, you just want to be called light skin. That's what's going on. But then I was like, you know what, Shivani, no. You have to take this from a learning standpoint, and you have to be like, if you're someone that's using this filter and you don't know what's wrong with it, or you can't see how this is shadist in the bigger context of things, can you comment so I can let you know why it's shadist? And that actually did a lot better. And that's when I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe just like being angry about shit and like or coming from that place is not good.
You're just passionate.
Yeah.
People don't I think so. Time. I get it.
But
I get it.
But yeah, coming from that learning place, and that's kind of where my newsletter idea kind of came from, where I was like, you know what, people maybe just need to learn about a lot of stuff. And so that's why I started approaching things more from that angle now on TikTok, and it's been a lot better.
Yeah, and I think like even within our community too, like just like again going back to the piece around shadism, right? Because I feel like even just like what we see on TikTok or what we saw through Miss Universe and all these different things like transcend from like those ideologies of, you know, if they do still exist, right? Like within our community. So like if you're fairer skin, you're more obviously they consider you as more beautiful. And a lot of times like what I've noticed within our community is that a lot of women, when we first started BGD, a lot of women did not want to support the community in its entirety because that was their experience. Like as an Indo-Caribbean woman, they were so like they felt so ashamed of being identified as, well, at the time was like a kuli, right? Like Indo-Caribbean wasn't really wasn't as much as the thing when we first started. And that was a big thing. Like a lot of women had actually like DM'd us. Well, at the time it was just me. So people were just DMing me. I was like 20 years old and people are like, I don't want to support you because of this and that. Like we don't want to support BGD because, you know, this was my experience. And it's like a lot of what you said. It's like a lot of these people are coming for like a learning experience because everything, even when you see on TikTok now, it's a lot of it comes from our trauma, and I feel like that's why mental health is such a big thing now because so much of what we talk about now is like trauma inflicted. That's why there's so much defense, there's so much like animosity, and that's like one of the biggest things I noticed in our community that we had to deal with and had to be okay with and be understanding about. It, like, I don't know if you know the kind of like what I mean is like we really had to be understanding that women are coming with like a lot of pain and trauma, and when they come they may actually not even want to be a part of this, or they may have a really negative perspective.
I mean, I edit the blog. I know all about the trauma.
Literally
people write about the situations that they've been through and their experiences and stuff. There's been all like, I remember there was this one that I think it was maybe not last year, the year before, but a woman wrote a piece. This is a little bit different where her son is mixed, so he's half black, and then it was about like an auntie in the family who kind of always commented about his hair and like his hair texture and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like, oh my god, like she was just commenting about like the kid's like hair texture, or about like how his hair is done and stuff like that. And like the title was something like "Auntie doesn't like my hair" or something like that, right? And that's
Check
like
it out.
There's a whole other thing on like texturism. That's like another side.
Other
That's a whole other side in there.
Definitely.
But just on the point of like experiences, you know, this woman wrote about the experiences of her being the mom and also having to like mediate and be like, okay, no, you're not going to talk about my kid like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with his hair. There's nothing wrong with his texture, and you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And there's definitely been stories as well where women have written about like their experiences of, you know, being like the darker skinned woman in the room, or, you know, whatever the case is. Because even if it's not within the community, sometimes it's the spaces you're in, right?
Yeah.
The spaces you're in, and you know what I mean? Even if you're a lighter skinned person, like in the Indo-Caribbean community, if you're in a space that's primarily white, well, you are the darker person. Right?
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, that's a big thing. Like, to jump in before I come to you, Shivani. Like, that was major. Like, that was like a big, again, like a learning curve of like even just like being a person of influence, like something that you really do have to consider. Because I know for myself, before BGD was like, and whatever we are, I know how you feel. Like, whatever we are, whatever this thing is, like when I was, again, like when I was in high school, that was like a big thing for me. Like, being the tallest, being the darkest, being the biggest was like such a big struggle. And my perspective on like being an Indo-Caribbean woman had to come from like a different mindset, right? Of like taking those stigmas out of the space and being like you actually can look and feel any way that you want. You know what I mean? And I feel like you probably had to go through that a lot, like just with your career in general.
Yeah, definitely. It's I always say like being a model for that long full time is very like it as much as it gave me, it took away. Like, absolutely. Because it's like a mind fuck, right? Like, you're thinking about how you look constantly. You're always having people comment on it. On the one hand, there's people telling you how beautiful you are. And on the other hand, there's somebody measuring your thigh and telling you that your thigh is too big for this client or whatever it is, you know? So it's like...
That's a lot. That is actually a lot. Like,
so much. And on top of that, think about the fact that, like, you're on a plane every 3 or 4 days on top of it. So
you don't have time to cook or anything.
Absolutely exhausted. And, like, you're... going like I can't even the amount of times I was like it's like, oh, by the way, you're going to Sweden tomorrow, or it's like, you know, you have this red eye
surprise.
You're shooting in LA all day, and then you have a red eye back to New York, and your flight lands at 8 and you have to be at the studio at 9. So it's like, here I am brushing my teeth in the airplane bathroom.
Oh
just
my gosh.
and so it's like it's just a lot.
Did they put you in first class?
No. barely it happens sometimes, but barely. But like, it's just like, you know, it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with. And don't get me wrong, like, it's an extremely privileged job. I'm not at all negating the fact that it's a privileged job, but it's a job, right? And that was, like, the biggest thing is, like, proving to people that, like, it's a job. It's still a job. It's like going into an office. And I can tell you now, I go into an office, right? I work in tech now. Like, they are very comparable, the jobs, in the sense of, like, the work ethic.
If not more.
The skills, like...
Yeah, like you can leave your office job and come home and like eat whatever you want, or like chill and do whatever you want. Like when you're a model, like you can't. It's like such a big part of your mental.
There's no other job that I can think of where they own you in such a way. Like if you were in a model apartment, they control where you live. If you work in some markets that my friends worked in Asia, for example, they control what you eat. Like my friends would be in situations where they'd be like, if they measured you and you were like a few centimeters off, they'd be like, so you're not getting money for food, and here's an apple, and have a great week. Like, literally.
That's terrible.
So, like, it's
traumatizing.
It's a very crazy, like, experience to have. So, I well, at the same time as I do totally recognize that it's such a privileged job to have, there's also another side of it where, like, it can be very dangerous and very traumatic, and, like, people also need to understand that that's a part of it as well. And, like, just like I have an office job now, that was a real job too, you know? Like, so I think it's just, like,
but I also think like a big thing too is like being allowed to actually say that like it was hard, because like one thing I noticed, like I'm not a therapist, but putting my therapist hat on, like every time you talk about it, you're like, you know, I know I was so privileged to have it, but it's like where we also like carry this way where we feel like we should not be allowed to like
not like necessarily, we're not allowed to complain.
We're not allowed
things.
to feel. We're not allowed to feel, you know, like
I think it's because like I came here as an immigrant. I grew up in a working class family, and I know what it is to, you know, have parents that are like thinking about putting food on the table kind of thing. Like I got low income grants to go to McMaster. You know what I mean? Like I paid my OSAP back myself, like all these things. And so I know what it's like to be in a low income situation, and I never want it to seem like I don't recognize all the privileges that I had, like as a model. I definitely did, right? And it is such a privileged job in a lot of ways, but I think it's just a very nuanced situation that like a lot of people don't know about. I think it's similar to being an actor or anything else in the entertainment industry where it's very glamorized, right? And you only see that side of it, and we don't share often the other side of it.
How many people are truly like struggling behind the lights and behind the scenes and the tapes?
And even like sometimes, honestly, a lot of the very successful people are struggling in other ways too, you know? So
are there things that you're still unpacking from your modeling days?
Oh my gosh.
Oh God, the pressure.
Every day. Like I put on, from the pandemic, I probably put on like 25 pounds since the pandemic. And so I'm a curve model. I'm considered a curve model now.
I don't want to know.
I'd be like, I don't want to know what I'm considered.
considered.
Not that it's funny, it doesn't matter.
No,
but I'm just saying, like,
I don't want to know what I'd be considered.
Yeah, like that.
I mean, we're at basically anybody over a 4'6" is like a curve. So we're all curve, and then after some people after a certain size also call it plus. At my agency, everyone is curve.
Yeah.
So I. Even going from being what they call a straight size model to a plus size model or to a curve model, like that is a mental journey on its own, just because of how society, how society looks at women that aren't super skinny. And
you're pretty small though. Like I don't know. It's a crazy thing. The industry is a crazy thing. You're right.
It's a wild, wild place. I'm very comfortable. I like being a curve model. I think I have a lot of friends that are as well. And like, I'm comfortable with the clients that I work with, the rates that I get, the jobs that I get. My agency in New York was also one of the first agencies that really started investing in curve properly and saw the benefit of understanding that women are different sizes. But it's definitely a mind fuck when you go from being like a size 2 to being a size 10 basically over the course of like a year and a half of a pandemic. And I know I'm not unique in that experience. That happened to a lot of people.
Course.
Yeah, me too.
And so that is something that I feel like I'm unpacking and struggling still with every day.
Yeah.
My husband is a sports doctor. He's extremely athletic. So sometimes it's like, you're like looking at yourself and you're like, oh my God, this guy wakes up at 5 a.m. and works out at 6 and has washboard abs. And like, I don't know. It's like, there's like a lot to it, and I'm like, oh God. And then.
But it's not, you're human, like you said. Like, you're literally a human. That's like only, I get that. But men are built
it's
different.
They
are built different.
Yeah.
Like,
men will,
all of our boyfriends,
they'll just sneeze and have abs, okay?
So true.
My boyfriend doesn't do anything and I'm just like, oh, you're
still
he'll
like eat
you're
like
still
5
so
burgers.
slim. Yeah, you're still very slim and like
this guy will legit eat like 3-4 burgers. I'm not even kidding.
He eats like late at night.
And I'm like, I'm just
time.
gonna have a lettuce bun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna have a lettuce bun today.
Yeah, like the slim menu. What was it? The skinny menu.
Yeah.
The skinny menu
we went to
Cheesecake Factory.
We went to Cheesecake Factory and there was a skinny menu.
Oh
and I got
my gosh.
this.
Why
It's like,
is this a thing? Like, I don't know. It's wild.
And I think like we could totally jump into it. It's a big thing, but body image is major in our community. Like,
so much to
that's
unpack.
like really been a journey that I'm on of trying to figure out like relationship with food and just being comfortable at a different size. And I don't know, like I was super skinny at one point when I was modeling. I was probably like more of a 2. And then over the pandemic I probably got to being like a 10, 12, and now I'm like an 8, and I don't really know what I'm supposed to be. I know that like there was a lot that was unhealthy about me when I was a 2, and I feel like there was a lot that I didn't feel great about, not like in my mind, but physiologically. There was a lot that I didn't feel great about when I was a 12 either. And now that I'm an 8, I'm kind of figuring out what that is, but I don't know what size I'm supposed to be. And maybe we're not supposed to be one size. Maybe we're supposed to change like throughout our lives, right? Yeah. And that's okay, but I have to be okay with it. Like I have to go on that journey myself and be like, it's okay that you're changing sizes. Like I'm 34 now. Maybe I'm not supposed to look how I looked when I was 24.
Well, see,
That's what I think we always talk about that. Yeah,
that's what
true.
I think we forget.
Yeah.
It's also like, okay, because we can talk about how the boys sneeze and they're skinny, right? But it's like, we're women, and women go through so many changes.
Yeah.
Just one with age, with whatever, if you've had a child, or sometimes it's like health and whatever, but it's like you just naturally go through a lot of fluctuations, and it's like I feel you on that, because I think I've accepting that too now, where I'm kind of like, oh, like sometimes
like I am who I am.
I look back at like pictures from when I was like 21. I'm like, I'm so skinny, and then I just feel kind of crappy. But then I'm like, okay, well, I'm like, I'm about to be 28. Of course, I'm not gonna have the same body that I did back then, and it wouldn't even be possible anymore. Like, there's just portions of me that even if I was to get skinnier, I'm still not gonna be the same size that I was at that age, because that was still kind of like your teenage body phasing into womanhood. Yeah. So I think that's one thing that I think we forget too as women. It's just like naturally we have different changes.
Totally. And to your point of like our culture, I feel like it's just like so blatantly talked about all the time. Like someone will be like, "Oh, you gained weight," or someone will be like, "Oh, you look chubby."
Oh my God.
But you get fat. You get fat.
Yeah.
Oh
you're eating good. I'm like,
we have a blog called "You Get Fat."
Yeah, no,
blog
literally,
called "You Get Fat."
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's terrible, and I've had to have conversations with older people that I know in my family and be like, "You don't realize how hurtful that is, but it's very hurtful. Like you have to stop doing that."
When I gave birth to my son, I kid you not, because like when I had my son, I was obviously bigger, and then I got much skinnier, right? Like I was down a lot, like I was way smaller, right? Like I lost at least 30 to 40 pounds. And when I was losing weight on that journey, I remember friend, you can call the person a friend, I guess, or an acquaintance of mine. I don't use friend lightly anymore, but an acquaintance of mine had said to me at the gym, okay, and I will never forget this. Like, I started crying at the gym because he was like, oh, you're still like basically like you're still losing weight, and I'm like, yeah, like I just had the baby. Like, this couldn't have been more than a year. It must have been like my son was still small because this was. Yeah, he couldn't have even been 6 months. And he's like, well, like, basically, like, what's your excuse? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm in the gym. It was so bad. Like, and I'm like,
yeah, punched him.
That person sounds horrible, yeah.
And he's like, he's like, people can bounce back. Like, you could have bounced back faster. I swear to God, this is a real conversation.
Everybody is different. Everybody's different.
But it was like very, for him, it was a very natural thing because it's like, he's like, it's not nice at all, and it's not it should not be normal, but Trinidadian people, like, that's how they talk, right? Like, like, you could bounce back fast, like, people do it all the time. And I'm like, I was like in tears. I had to tell the trainer, I'm like, yo, you need to like make sure people like this are not in the gym, because it was like, I still remember it to this day. It still hurts me.
I'm really sorry that you went through that.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. That's not
terrible.
nice.
And that's so unrealistic. It's so unrealistic.
I think the fact that it comes from a man too sometimes goes to show, like, it's like, do you know what the hell my body made a human, bro? It's not gonna bounce back in a year. Like,
not even
or
years.
5, okay?
Like, or even 5. Like, who cares?
It takes time.
And also, like, mentally, the toll that, like, having a child and being a mother and all this takes on you is just crazy. Like, nobody should be judging anything about that situation at all. Everyone's situation is so different, and until you go through it, and even when you go through it, you can't judge anybody else.
And men will never go through it, so they have no
should
say.
just shut the fuck up.
No say.
That's just no, literally. But I think, like, that's like a really beautiful thing that you were saying, is like you being a 12 and then being an 8. Like, those are really normal sizes. And even like for myself, like when I started to gain weight after I had lost so much weight, because you know how it goes, like when you're up and down. Like,
totally.
I've always been up and down. Like, at one point I was like literally anorexic, a size 4. Then I went back up to like a 12, 13. And it's like, we're all kind of actually like around, like, let's say, well, now I know you're like an 8, but overall, like, pretty much the same thing. And all of our body shapes are different.
Also, like,
know?
Women's sizing is so fucked. It means nothing. You can go to one store and be an 8, and go to another store and be an 10, and be another store and go to a 4. You could be within the same store and be a 28 gene and a 40 gene. Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
In the last couple of weeks, I bought like a few new pieces of clothes, and there was like one store I bought a top and I could fit into a small, okay, shocker. Another store, a medium, okay, and like my normal size for tops is like usually a large at this point, just because like I have a bigger chest. But I was like, okay, like my mind is just completely like messed up right now, because I'm like, I fit into a small in this one store, and then this other one was a medium, and then my other ones are a large. I don't know what to think about.
Yeah,
you should buy Indian outfits, because when you go to the Indian, when you go to buy it, no, everything is big because they have to size it.
I was gonna say their sizing is so messed up. Like,
they have to size everything. Like, they either have to open it up or size it down, so everything fits.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna go to work in a sari just for you. I'm gonna go to the
change the
HarperCollins
culture
office in a sari.
Yeah, but that's something
that'll go well.
That's something I really hope that our generation is changing. Like, let's not. First of all, no one should ever. There is never a reason to comment on someone's weight. Never. Ever. Unless you're a doctor and the person came in. Because even doctors say some wild shit. But like, unless you're a doctor and the person came in saying, I'm concerned about something, then you should comment. Right? Because they asked you. But otherwise, don't ever comment on someone's weight. Like, there's no reason. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know if they have an eating disorder. You don't know if they're going through something medical. You just don't
hormonal.
know.
Like, nowadays, especially.
Don't say it. Shut your mouth.
Yeah, literally.
Close your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you just
don't
cannot say it anymore, because I feel like, like, now it's coming out, like you said, like, even you, like, I feel like you saying that you were a 4, then you were 8, then you were a 12, like, that is so important, because we, like, equate everything to numbers.
Yeah.
Right?
And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Like, it matters in the sense of, like, of course, society, you know, there's so much to being, like, skinny privilege. Absolutely. But it doesn't really matter in the sense of, like we were saying, like, these sizes are different everywhere you go. So it's like,
there's no consistency.
Yeah. And we just have to be on this journey of figuring out, like, it's not really about body positivity. It's more about body neutrality, which means allowing yourself on the days that you feel like shit. It's okay to feel like shit. Like, I know a ton of body positivity influencers or body neutrality influencers, especially girls that are, you know, curve models or plus size models like me. And like, they go through it as well. Like, they're not happy every day. Just because, like, a lot of days they feel like, I'm accepting my big boobs, or I'm accepting the fact that I'm a size 16 or whatever it is.
So true,
They also have horrible days as well, and they're allowed to have those days. Like, we're allowed to feel however we want to feel about our bodies, you know?
It is so true. And I think like a big thing of what you said is this like that whole big piece of like all these Instagram models who may have been bigger. I know there's one girl I follow. I can't remember her name. It starts with a B. But if you guys like have not heard of her, go follow her. Her content is so amazing, and she has just opened up about her experience. Like as I think she's Sri Lankan. Her name is it starts with a B.
We can find
we
her.
can find her. We'll find her. Maybe we
can
can pop it in here.
Check the show notes.
Byron something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, amazing.
Okay.
Like her content is so amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember like seeing some comments about her because she was a lot bigger. She went through a divorce. She actually caught her husband.
Bryn.
Oh, yeah, I just
Yes,
figured
yes,
that.
yes.
I love her.
I love Brinta.
Brinta.
What did I say? Byron.
Yeah, no,
Byron.
Brinta,
Yeah,
yes.
Brinta,
I follow her too. Actually.
She's
yeah.
amazing.
Her content is so amazing, and I just love it.
We follow each other. She's a sweetheart.
Yeah, she is so
amazing.
amazing, and shout out to her. And I want to be her friend, low key, because I just love her journey. And
she's amazing.
She had just opened up about that because I remember seeing like at one point she had like lost a lot of weight, and I was having a conversation with somebody where they're like, oh, I don't know if we should we should focus on highlighting somebody like that because, you know, a lot of women are kind of like against somebody that was bigger and then lost weight. But it's just like what you were saying. It's not about, it's her journey, right? And like that's what it needs to be highlighting versus like what you said, body positivity, because then it kind of like equates us to having to look a certain way and be positive in that space. Whereas like, why can't you just be like positive across the board? No matter what you look like, no matter what you feel like you should just be able to just love yourself at any point in the journey.
But I think the point is if you don't love yourself at certain days, that's also okay.
Yes, and
like you have to let yourself go through that, right? Because the societal things at play, but we don't control that.
It's true,
right? And it's not coming from us. It's misogyny. It's all these other things, right?
I've seen her. I think it was a video a little while ago, but I think the same thing. People commenting on, you know, her weight loss and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where she was also kind of saying the same thing, where she was like, I loved myself when I was like a bigger size and I was still beautiful, and now I'm a smaller size and I love myself.
So beautiful,
and I'm still beautiful.
In both spaces, because I followed her like before and then after. Like it was it was really amazing to watch, and I feel like we need to like normalize that a lot more, because even like we were saying, like for me, like oh my god, like even now, right now, like in my life, like it's such a struggle.
It is
with my like. It's okay, like now we're like getting on camera, or we're like summertime is coming up, like the pressure of the summer coming up.
There's been so many times right now as we're sitting here where I'm like, I wonder if like you can see like the
this whole time I've been like, is this
flat? Does the blanket look okay?
Literally this whole time I've been like, is this flat here? Like you know, I've been like, oh, I have to maybe let me sit up.
Pull the blanket up. Let me like
bit?
Because
see like my stomach.
Okay, I'm gonna wear black today because like it's so true. Like we have so much going on. Like truly, there's so much going on. There's no time in the day. There's no time in the day again to get up, journal, drink your water, get to work, come back home, do your other job, and then do your passion project, and then for myself, like be a mother or be a cat mom.
Yeah.
Or like all these different things, or like be a reader, like to just do all the things that you want to do. That's why I think
that you guys should be so proud of yourselves.
So should you.
But like, no, but I'm just saying, because I feel like, you know, when you are somebody that has a passion project, it's really easy to be like, I'm not doing enough and like whatever. But I just think honestly, like existing is enough. Existing and surviving in a capitalist world is fucking hard enough, dude. Like the system was not made for us, right? It certainly wasn't made for women, and it certainly wasn't made for women of color. It's even more difficult if you're a black woman, right? Like, so it's like the system wasn't made for us. So the fact that we even like, we all have jobs, we have children, we own property, we whatever, like these things are all like, we're already thriving, you know? So, but surviving is also enough. You know,
and that's the big thing. Like it's just like as you do that, you're like eating. You're on the road, so you're eating this, you're eating that, and like I could just naturally feel my body. Like I remember just having like a conversation with my partner where I'm just like, I'm just not happy. Like I'm just not happy right now. Like I just feel terrible. I'm doing all these things, but I feel like I'm just like running on a treadmill. Like I wish I was running on a treadmill before. But
also, let me just say, partners, like. You have to tell your partner that they're beautiful. You have to say things.
It's so true.
You have to vocalize it. Like we need to hear it. Like we really.
I recently had a conversation.
It goes a long way, right?
About not about the calling beautiful, but just about sort of like the general body thing.
Yeah, that's too. Yeah.
I was saying like it was like a couple weeks ago, and it was just a day where I was like, I feel really gross. Like I just don't feel good about the way I look. I feel like. I don't know, it's just like, I'm not feeling it, right? But I was also explaining to him, like, I know kind of pass, because then there's days where I get dressed and I'm like,
oh, like,
everything's doing what it's supposed to do. Then there's other days where I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh my god, like this could just look.
Every time I go to the mall to have to try on clothes, I'm like,
worst thing ever.
I'm like, you know what? I just want to leave. Like, I just want to leave. Like, I've been going through that where I was like, I'm like, you know what? Because you also feel like you have to dress or look a certain way. You have to dress a certain way to be like, yeah, like I'm confident in my body. Like, why can't I just wear the things that I just feel comfortable in? Because that's where I'm gonna show up and like be my best. Like that's like one of the biggest thing that I realized. Like I just have to dress and feel comfortable, because that's when I'm gonna show up and actually be like confident in a space, or like be willing to have like conversations, or be that woman, you know, when they say like walk into a room, own your space. Like that's really how you're gonna do it. But
question
it's hard
for everyone: what is your go-to outfit that makes you feel good no matter what? No matter what the circumstance. What is your confidence outfit?
Oh, mine is like...
That's such a good question.
Always like a button down, like a loose fit button down with like probably a bodysuit and a pair of jeans, or like flare pants.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sneakers. I always have to wear sneakers.
I don't feel nice in anything lately, but I like really deep V. I don't have boobs, so I can basically wear whatever top I want. So I like really deep V bodysuits, probably with that. Like... Yeah, like maybe straight leg pants, and like I always feel I should not wear heels because I have really bad scoliosis, but I always feel hotter in heels. I really do.
Oh yeah,
I feel sexier in heels, but it hurts like a bitch.
I can't even do heels.
I have to like found the perfect ones, so I just wear those and I just call it a day.
I wear the smaller ones now.
Yeah, like no, or you have to like. Honestly, like, I find Guess has the best, like, most comfortable heels ever.
Oh, really?
I might have to try that then.
Yes, they do. They have the most comfortable heels.
I think
like
they're the worst thing in the world.
My mom was like a heel girl. Like, she only wear... Like, we'd go to the mall and she'd be in heels. And I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's go to the mall.
I respect that.
Yeah, you know our mom. She's, like, always, like, in heel. Like, she was always in heels.
Very put together, yeah.
Yeah, she was like... If I used to wear sweats to go to school, she'd be like...
What are you doing?
Yeah, at that time. But, like, yeah, honestly, like, she would, like, always wear heels. And she was one who told me, like, wear Guess heels if you want to... Like, if you want to go out.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, they're good.
Try them. I'm going to try that now.
I've been telling you this.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. You don't listen.
Listen, I got the Aldo Comfort pillow.
Oh no, those are the
and they're torturous. They're torturous. I don't know. Me and heels don't really vibe together.
Yeah, I really don't. So. And like I said, my husband's a sports chiro, so he'll always say heels are super bad for you, like so bad for your body in so many different ways. Yeah. But I do feel better in them. What's yours? Your outfit?
Mine. For me, like, it's not really, like, a set, like, it's always, like, a tighter top. Yeah. So maybe something like a bodysuit, or even, like, a t-shirt that's, like, a little bit fitted or something like that. And then, like, a baggier bottom, or, like, a wider leg bottom. So I really like wide cut pants.
I love the flare,
yeah. The flare cut pants. And then, or if not like that, like, even right now, like, a baggier pair of jeans. I just like that combo. Loose on the bottom, tighter on the top.
Baggy jeans right now.
It's like business casual, city girl.
It's the best thing ever. Yeah. I'm so
I love baggy jeans.
I don't really have flexibility.
Let's just, like, normalize those things, okay?
You have good boobs, though.
Thank you.
They're really good boobs.
Every girl, on a side note, every female should go to Victoria's Secret and get measured, because I was wearing
the wrong size. Yes, I'm wearing the wrong size.
Don't say every girl. Don't say every girl. That generalizes.
I am a D. I'm a D. Okay, so I don't ever want to hear. I am not an itty bitty anymore. I'm a D cup apparently. Shivani's like. That's
I don't know anything about the
Go get sized, because you be shocked.
I'm sized.
But
I know
I swear to God, like, when you get sized and you wear the right bra,
it's a game changer.
It is a major game changer.
I'm trying to get to that stage right now.
Just get measured. It's so simple. It's free.
I get really emotional every time I get measured. It's a really traumatizing
I'll do it for you.
It is traumatizing.
Every time I get measured, I went through a phase where, like, it was kind of over the last, like, few years. For the longest time, I was the same size, like, consistently from, like, high school into, like, college and post that. No, I was a C. I was a 34C for the longest time. And then, I don't know, I went through this, like, couple of years where every single year it changed, where it's like, it went, okay, next year I was a D. I was like, okay, I was a little bigger. I was like, okay, cool, I got big boobs. And then it went DD, and then I was like, okay. Then it went triple D, and I was like, okay, I'm running out of money to buy bras. This is ridiculous. And then now I'm at a G, and I'm like, if I get any bigger, I'm going to cry because my back hurts.
Would you ever get a breast reduction?
I say it sometimes. If I got, like, 2 sizes bigger, I probably would, because I just think it's honestly just too much. And
because I have two cousins in the States that did it, and they literally, it was like the best thing they ever did.
Yeah,
see, I say it out loud
because it is really bad for your back, and like you can get your doctor to, you know, what was I gonna say, to recommend that.
Yeah,
you can get your doctor to recommend
I feel some of the back pain sometimes. My boyfriend has a really hard time when I tell him that I consider it, because he's just like, oh my god, no, and I'm like, yeah, well, you don't actually carry them.
Well, it's not like you're gonna lose them. You're just gonna reduce them a little bit.
You know how boys are.
No, but honestly, like,
that's a different discussion.
That's a different discussion. You know what I mean? It's like, why?
Yeah,
they're so great. Why would you like?
They're so great.
They're so great.
I love them. I don't care if you were in pain, Tiara. I don't care
if your back hurts.
What are you talking about?
So
are
great.
we not looking at the same?
They're so great. Why would you get rid of them? I'm like, why don't you strap them to your chest?
Yeah,
and carry them.
Make
around?
him do that.
That would be a great
experiment. That would actually be like a great.
You know how they have the belly that you can strap on, to show a man.
Oh, I would love to make my husband do that.
Or the cramp one. They actually like have a machine where you could put cramps on.
Men never.
But I don't think we have a. I don't think there's a boob one, so they can know what it feels like to carry like.
You should do it. You should
make
that.
Strap on Amazon.
Watermelons on him or something.
No, honestly, I think that's like a super interesting thing. Like
it is
when you think about
there's depth to the joke here.
Like,
but I will say I feel a big difference with a lot of younger guys now. Like I feel like they're so much more open to learning about women's experiencing or not judging women's experiences. Like one of the things I loved about my husband, like he's not younger, we're the same age. We're the same age, but he's 51 days older than me.
Woo.
But he'll never,
like older men, eh?
Yeah, he never stops bringing it up. But one of the things I like loved about him when I first met him was like he was like, yo, women, like he's like, what you guys go through, I don't know. It's maybe because he's a sports doc.
He's a doctor too,
he was like, your bodies are, it's wild. Like, he was like, you guys are beasts, bro.
And you're like, wait, what do I even go through?
I'm marry him. You said I'm a marry him.
I was like, wow, at least you get it. Like, to a certain extent, you know? Like,
because we're still figuring it out. So it's nice that you have a doctor to at least kind of give some context.
Yeah, he was like.
Like, really, though.
Yeah,
I was just like, wow, it's nice to be with somebody who gets that, like, if I'm keeling over with cramps or something, he's not going to be like, build a bridge and get over it. Like, he gets it, you know?
How about you build a bridge and help me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is a nice thing. And like you were saying before, like, it's very important to have a partner that, like, supports you.
Are you teaching your son things, like, about these types of things and, like, treating women?
Well, I will always ask him, like, how do I look? And he always says something good. Unless he thinks I'm like really beautiful all the time. But he always like says nice things. But I think he also like sees his dad like do those things as well. Like he's very
important.
His dad's like a very caring person. Like if he sees us like on the couch, like he'll like put the blanket over. Like things like that you don't realize.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, like contributing. Great. Yeah, like small things. Like if your cup is empty, he'll refill it.
It's all small things.
It's all the small.
It's always small things.
Yeah, I need to do better. He's a little bit better than me. I'm just kidding.
He's still a little boy though.
Yeah,
but no, like goes a long way. I feel you though, because I think like my mom definitely kind of work that in with like my brother, and like anytime I get ready to go out, like if I, you know what I mean, if it's still like while he's at home or something like that, and he'll always like, you know,
I think a lot of it is like just natural like day-to-day life. Like just being a good person. Like I don't think I would ever say that we've like sat down and I've been like I'll always say like, oh, like how does mommy look or whatever, like, oh, did you tell grandma like she looks nice or whatever, things like that. We integrate it. He's a very shy guy, so I don't know if he's too into like, I don't know if he's gonna be like the emotional like sensitive guy. Like he's a little bit more like reserved. But I do think that like just like instilling that in like day-to-day life and like just making sure that that's what he sees is like a big part of it. Like you just have to like be a kind person because children really do absorb everything.
Definitely.
They absorb everything.
I think even like just seeing the way your parents interact is such a big deal. Like my parents have been together for 47 or 48 years. Like they've been together for a really long time. They're older. They're both in their 70s. But like I've literally never seen my parents fight. Not once. They're extremely inseparable. It's disgusting.
Oh my God,
they never fight.
Cute.
They're like
so
literally
cute,
best friends.
though.
They do everything together. Yeah. They don't like, they're not touchy-feely, which most of our parents aren't.
Yeah.
They're not touchy-feely.
At least not when we're around.
No, but they're very, like, jokey with each other. And, like, they're very, like, my husband always says, like, oh, if we can be, like, as inseparable as your parents are when we're at our 70s, like, I'd be so content. Because they're just so like this. Like, so I struggle a lot when I see other people fighting, or I think that reflected with me when I have, like, you know, fights in relationships. I don't understand because I've never seen my parents fight. Like, they really just don't fight. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that my dad is very quiet. My dad doesn't really talk, so that might be a huge part of it. But like, you know, that I think like I've always sort of expected that sort of like respect from a partner because my dad shows my mom a lot of respect.
Yeah, I think that's major. Yeah, that's
super major. You know, and so like
it's
just you like the way you're saying like your partner's caring, and you know that really helps that your son is seeing that stuff.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. We work on it as parents. We're young. Totally. We're trying to get through it. Totally. We're getting through the motions. We're getting exactly. I'm gonna be real. We're getting through the motions.
It's hard.
But you know,
it's hard.
I have a lot of therapists on deck. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you're great.
I have a lot of therapists. Like, no, I'm just kidding. Like, we really try to work through it, but I think we're very mindful. Like, I feel like if we do make a mistake or something happens, like, we also, like, even though we're not perfect, we always do, like, try to ask them, like, you know, did that upset you? And if it did upset you, like, we want you to know that, like, you know, like, whatever. Like, we will respond to it. Like, I'll never just leave it and
That's
not
a huge
say
deal.
anything about
That's
it.
really
Just, like,
good.
addressing it because, like, I will be honest. Like, we are, like, I had my son when I was, like, 21.
Wow.
I was very young.
Wow, yeah.
And like obviously like I now realize like I always felt like my partner was older than me, but he was also young too, right?
Yeah.
So like
we're all just experiencing life for the first time.
We're just like we're just so going so fast, right?
Yeah.
So for us it's like it really is a learning thing of like two young people like navigating each other, still learning each other, like still changing so much.
Yeah.
Like in our lives and in our careers and like really figuring out like what that needs to look like for our child and making like it's a lot of pressure. It is a lot of pressure to make sure that it's always perfect. And like, if you do make a mistake, it's like, oh my God, is he gonna be like, is he gonna have like trauma? Like, that's like my biggest thing. I think like, and I watched something, you guys know Charlemagne the God, right?
Yeah.
He said that, like I really like his stuff, but he had said that his father always raised him on fear instead of love.
Oh yeah.
Like sometimes we raise our children out of fear instead of love. And that was a big thing.
I don't think that your kid is gonna have any trauma from
God,
that.
I hope so.
I think
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I hope so.
You know what? Even though I don't have kids or anything, obviously, but like I relate to what you're saying about just obviously like you know like we're young and we're figuring it out and stuff like that because like I've been with my partner since I was 19. Okay.
Wow.
So it's been a really long time, and the thing
like
is
almost
about
10 years. Then
next year would be 10 years.
Holy.
That's so impressive. That's longer than I've been with my husband. This year is 8 years that we've been together.
Oh really? Yeah. Us two were 8 years. Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Well, I love that everyone's coming up on their decade.
I know, right?
But it's such a learning experience, and I think that like no one really tells you all the things that you kind of go through in this like process, which is like because okay, we got together really young, obviously, and then you're like 19, so you're like, oh my God, I'm so in love. You're so amazing. You're so perfect. And like I just love you so much. I still obviously love him so much. That's why we're still here. But as we got older, and like you're not the same person, so you change a lot. Things happen, life gets real as you get older, like life really gets real and like adulthood gets real, and then at the same time it's like we've grown up together, so we're going through all the changes together and we're going through figuring out life together, and at the same time we're like, well, we have no prior experience, or you know what I mean, like we don't have another relationship to reference and be like, okay, I did this in this one or whatever the case is. So yeah, we just don't have any, you know what I mean? Like, there's no precursor. I'm never gonna have spent 10 years with anyone else prior to meeting him. That was just impossible. So nonetheless, my point with, like, talking about this relationship and, like, my relationship and stuff is just, as we've gotten older, it means also getting out of the, like, honeymoon phase, basically the lovey-dovey phase, and also realizing that like we're doing life together at this point, and we have to have like conversations about real things and also like get to know each other in different ways besides like just, you know, our favorite this and what we do and stuff like that. Like even the other night, like I was like my partner and I, like I was really upset about something, and then like I really needed to talk things out with him because I find that talking things out is very helpful to me these days. And getting it out in a healthy way also, so I'm not as reactive or not as heated up, and so I'm not like, okay, so what's up? Although sometimes you need to do that, but you know, we really like talked through things, and outside of what was bothering me, we kind of just talked about like our own learning experiences, and it kind of just looped back to things that we had dealt with one another, and like things that we went through, but like we didn't know how to deal with those things at the time that we went through them.
Yeah.
Because there's no manual. There's no anything. But now that we've gotten older and like we're learning more things, mental health is a conversation that's coming up and stuff. We are applying those things now. Like my partner through work and stuff, he's been doing a lot of like mental health and like crisis training. And he's also saying like, I'm realizing things about myself and like I being able to identify what I went through. And he's also like, I realized that some of the things that like before that I was thinking where I was upset or I realized you didn't know how to like deal with or something, because it's like, you were trying to do something like we just didn't know what we were doing and we couldn't identify the thing.
It's true. And there's like no Shiv, let me jump to you and then I'll say my point after, because I know you wanted to comment on something.
Mine, it's kind of like not related to that, but it's relationship related. So you say
okay. So I think like that's major. And to be honest, I don't think my partner's gonna be happy that I'm mentioning this part too much. But you know what? If I don't say it, who's gonna say it? Someone's got to say it. Like we did go to therapy for a period of time, and I realized in that time, because like I said, we were 20 years old, 21 years old. Like you are so young. Like I wasn't even done school yet. I didn't know what I was. Like I was still a kid. Like I was like working a million different jobs. Like I was all over the place partying. I don't know what I was doing, like
Walmart.
Walmart. I was one of the number one. I worked at a hotel. I worked at all the spots.
She's like, by the way, I was one of their number one employees.
No, I was one of their number one MasterCard sellers.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
and you're very convincing.
Yeah, thank you.
I get
$4 per card. Exactly, $4 per card, and I have one, and it's great rewards. Everybody should have one. Anyway, besides the point, if you guys don't have a Walmart MasterCard, you should get one.
MasterCard is one of our biggest sponsors at Elevate. So.
Oh wow, there we go. You see? So
you should also sponsor this podcast.
Literally,
BT Dubs.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So no, but on an honest note, like we were going so fast, and like life just hit us. Like we are learning how to be parents. We're learning how to be ourselves. We're learning how to work. We're learning we're going into our careers. Like before we even met, we weren't even in our careers. Like we went through that entire journey together. And then there's like this added pressure of like wanting to live life, and not being married was like a big thing, right? Yeah. Like when I got pregnant, his grandma was like, "Are you guys gonna get married?" And I'm like, we were like, we
have to write our finals, so no. Yeah,
literally, no, like actually,
like
like
I got a shift tomorrow morning.
Like I don't.
You're like, I may have to speak to my manager. I don't know. Yeah,
literally. So for us, it was like life just happened so fast, and like obviously, like sometimes it takes a traumatic situation for life to really slow down.
Yeah,
and just like I remember when my grandpa died, it was like, whoa. What just happened?
Yeah.
Like where did the time go? Where did life really go? And for us, like that was a big shifting point in our life and in our relationship, and it was really, really difficult. But I think that like, shout out to therapy, obviously, but in all honesty, we are like young people in relationships trying to navigate these big, huge problems. And be like, okay, well, we're just going to sit down and talk about it. What's bothering you? What's bothering you? And then you go to a therapist. Like, we've all been to therapy, I'm sure. And, like, you need... I mean, if you want to. Like but, Shiv, I know you've talked about
everyone
it. Like,
needs to go, yeah.
Everybody, yeah. Like, we were talking about it before. Like, everybody... Like, going to a therapist... It just totally shifted our mindset in the way that we think about each other, in the way that we treat each other, in the way that we act. And I mean, we're not perfect. We're still working on it. And we're working on a lot of things in life. We will be for the rest of our lives. But that was like a major thing where I realized, like, how are we as people really navigating these big, huge issues? Like, these are not normal things to just, like, know how to navigate. There's actual tools that you need. To, like, critical think and think about your partner and think
crisis
about the person.
Training. Being able to identify when someone's in crisis.
Yes.
And what do you do as a bystander and
And how much like we bring from our own lives into our relationships, how we view relationships, right? Like he comes from a single parent home, I come from a 2-parent home.
Right.
But that like those things don't always match. And now we're trying to be 2 parents and make it work and be there for our son and love each other and not be married. And it's just so many layers.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I remember when I found out you had a kid, I was like, oh my God. I was like, I have so much more respect for her now. Like, I already respected you.
Like, oh my God.
But I was like, whoa, okay. She has a job. She has a kid. She's doing Brown Gyal Diary. She's, like, doing all these activations. Like, because I think the first time I met you, you had, like, asked me to do an interview thing with you or something. And I did it the live or whatever. And I didn't know that you didn't have a kid. And, like, that you had a kid. I didn't know. And then I found out later. And I was like, oh my God. And then, like, we were doing different meetings and stuff. And you were, like, doing the meetings from your phone in your car and your kids like sleeping in the car. And I'm like, this girl is still showing up. Like, this is crazy. Like she, you know, so you,
I remember our early
it's a lot of
meetings.
It's a lot of work.
Early meetings. And then like in the back of the Zoom, you see
Zayden was like a baby.
Yeah, he was like probably like 2 or something.
The fact that you even started it when you had a baby is crazy. Like,
I appreciate
you should
that,
really
guys.
be really
Thanks.
proud of yourself.
I
It's a
commend
lot
you
of
all the
work.
time.
Thanks, guys.
It's
You guys
a
know how to
lot of
take
work.
Compliments well. So.
You're a great mom, Ashley.
Thanks,
You really are.
thanks,
The thing I was gonna say is, and I fully believe this with my whole heart about relationships, and I think it has to do with men and women, but specifically women. Like, you should always be able to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't depend on anyone ever. I have family that are like stay-at-home moms, and they don't, you know, they do so much for the household. I also think being a stay-at-home mom is so much work.
Oh God, I could never.
And it's not for me for sure.
I couldn't.
But like I do believe that it's extremely valuable. But you know, we live in a capitalist world, and I really do believe that women should always have your own thing. You should always have your own money. You should always be able to take care of yourself at the end of the day, because you never know what can happen. And that doesn't mean that you don't trust your partner or you don't love your partner or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, like, this is a man's world. Like, it wasn't built for us. And so I think...
My mom, everything you're saying right now, this was, like, the exact speech my mom gave me.
My grandma told me that
you have to, right?
And
I think the reason that, like, I'm this way is because my mom's always worked, but my mom is also still very traditional. And so if I were to ever bring up, like, a prenup or anything like that, my mom would be like, oh, my God, that's so disrespectful. Don't do that. Yeah. But I had a best friend growing up whose mom... was very mistreated by her father, and the mom ended up having, like, the only reason basically this mother ended up making enough money to, like, survive was because she just had to sell all of her jewelry. And when we grew up, she would, like, always tell us, like, you friggin' take care of yourself. Like, always make sure that you're okay at the end of the day. Take care of your partner, do your thing, whatever. But I really strongly believe that women, you should always have to take care of yourself. Personally, I'd be fucking damned if I ever had to ask a man for money for anything.
Oh, hell no.
That's never going to happen to me.
Not me.
And listen.
I mean, feel free to give it to me.
But again,
I'll take it. But yeah, I will.
I'm not gonna ask.
And again, like, no disrespect. If you are a stay-at-home mom or you are somebody that doesn't have an outside job, you only work in the home, and your partner brings in the money, that's you. Like, if you're happy with that, no judgment at all. I'm just saying, couldn't be me, babe. But like, that's what, no judgment. Like, I literally have family that is their situation. They're very happy. That's fine.
If it works for people, then like,
if it works for you, that's great.
Cool,
I'm just saying, my advice would be always take care of yourself. And by the way, the other partner as well, whether it's a man or a woman, whoever your partner is, everybody should always be able to take care of themselves. Maybe this is like a trauma response of being hyper independent, but I just never want to ever have to rely on anybody else.
We had a conversation similar to this recently too. Remember, like, we were talking about it, and I was like, we have to be like good with ourselves, like, at all times.
Yes.
No matter what, like, we have, whether it's even outside of your relationship, like, you have to be good with yourself, because it just translates the way you show up in spaces and stuff as well 100%. On a day-to-day, you know what I mean?
100%.
Especially when, okay, we're women, okay, cool. We're women of color,
okay, cool.
We're Indo-Caribbean women like, who, you know what I mean? That's already a mystery to half of the country we live in. So it's like, you know, you show up in a space like I'm thinking like right now, I just started a new job, right? God bless. I work in publishing, and it's what I've always wanted to do, and I'm really happy to be there. But it is 85% white in the room. The whole team I work on, I don't know if they're ever going to see this, but whatever. The whole team I work on, they know they can see themselves. They're all white. I was in a department meeting the other day. I've just ended up doing this for fun, but I counted the amount of people in the room. I said, there's 30 people. I said, how many people of color are in the room? And there was 4, including me.
Wow.
I was like, wow.
And that's actually probably better than it was, because just before
historically,
2 weeks
weren't even
ago,
allowed in the room.
And 2 weeks ago, when you were like 3-4 weeks ago, when you weren't there, it was only 3. Like, before she got there was only 3.
There was only 3.
Yeah. Every tech company I've ever worked at, the leadership has always been. Yeah.
But even like back to your
white.
point about like just like women in general, and just like, you know, like being able to depend on yourself, and like how that's for yourself. I just even think for like, there's a lot of Indo-Caribbean women in our community that are stay-at-home moms, and it is that traditional like lifestyle.
Totally.
But you need to also know your rights.
Yeah.
And like know what you're entitled to and stuff like that, right?
Totally.
To like protect yourself. And I mean, like, obviously, like, you know, use our resources and our therapists if you need the support.
I have an unrelated question.
Yeah.
For me?
Yeah. Why tech?
Tech?
I'm just interested, because it's like what got you interested in tech and like wanting to be in tech?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, tech is the future, right? Like it's happening whether we want it to or not.
Well, yeah.
I'm very interested in like the idea of like diversification and future proofing yourself. That's what I always say about my newsletter. I'm always like, my newsletter, Learn Shiv, is for people that want to future proof themselves and like people that are interested in diversification. So I feel like tech is that, right?
But that's major for women as well. Like,
yeah.
Future proofing yourself. And
I feel like
it all connects actually.
The people who
women
say
in tech and all these things.
Yeah, the people who say they're afraid of tech, or the people who say they're afraid of AI, and I'm like, listen, this is like politics. You may not do politics, but baby, politics is gonna do you. Like that's what Carrie Twigg said,
100%.
and that is the truth. And it is the same shit with AI, and it's the same shit with tech. So instead of like being like, you know, risk averse to it, I'm like, let's embrace it, let's learn about it, let's figure it out. And so when
somebody needs to simplify it,
and so when I figured out that journalism in Canada wasn't going to be the thing for me, I had a bunch of friends that worked in San Francisco that worked in big tech. They all worked for the big four, and they were like, "There's this job. It's called content marketing. There's a field called content marketing. It's within marketing, and basically everyone who's a content marketer basically used to be a journalist. It's the same job. It's just brand journalism." So they were like, that's a job that you can do.
Like my segue. I went to school for journalism and didn't
go
through with it.
And so I was like, oh, okay. Then these are the kind of jobs I'm going to apply for. And then I did. And then I started getting those jobs. And really that was it. And I realized, okay, I miss storytelling. I miss doing the stuff I used to do, but also like I have to make money. So I just do it now. You know, for those other 4 companies that I worked at, I did it for software. I told stories about software. And now at Elevate, I get to tell stories about startups and about the founders of those startups and about all the great speakers that we have and that we are having at our festival and things like that. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into tech.
But I think like the beautiful thing that you were saying, and I think is really cool, and just segueing back to all these different pieces that we were talking about, is you and just like all the hats that you wear, and you being able to like bring your passion into different spaces as a woman of color, as an Indo-Caribbean woman. You were able to take all these amazing parts of you and like create this amazing person, right? Like you're able to learn from all your experiences, you're able to have all these different passions, you're able to have all these different passion projects and be able to like just flourish in a really beautiful way. And I think that's where even your passion comes when it came, like to me, that part was really powerful about your conversation, where you were just saying like, you know, women need to be able to support themselves and whatever form that comes in, that's okay, right? So I think I just think that was a really beautiful piece of like what you said, of just like really bringing it all together, of like all these different pieces of you as a woman. And as women, we need to be able to like have something that we love and like bring it to life. And no matter what part of life you're in, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, or whether you're you're a mom that works 10 jobs, or whether you're you whatever you're doing, or whether you're just a young entrepreneur, like how are you embracing all of those things? So, I love that.
Thanks. I mean, I just feel like it's like whatever you're doing that makes you happy, it's okay. Like, don't judge yourself. Be so easy on yourself, because just surviving is enough. Like, just surviving is so hard. So I think that's always my message. Like, if you are lucky enough that you can go past the survive part to the thrive part, just know that you're in the minority, because most people are just trying to survive. And if that's who you are, don't judge yourself. It's okay. Like, the system really isn't built for us. So just try to get through your day, as best as you can. And I promise that I will always fight and try to speak up and do as much as I can to always speak for marginalized people as much as my little voice can do. I'll do it.
So as we're kind of coming to, I think, our wrap up point, and this has been a very fun conversation.
Yeah,
interesting conversation.
Super fun.
I'll let everyone do this one, okay? But I'll start with Shivani. Obviously, she's our guest. So, who is Shivani in 3 words? How would you put yourself in 3 words?
That's such a good question.
Like in a sentence or in 3?
No, like 3 words.
Okay,
like just 3 words. Period in between each word.
I would say versatile, passionate, and fun.
I think you're funny.
I think I'm
fun. You're a fun
girl. I'm a fun time.
Oh my god. Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
Okay. Yeah, I was also going to say passionate. I think I'm a very passionate person.
You are.
I agree.
I think I'm a very I'm very dedicated.
Yes.
I agree.
And I think I'm very caring. I think I'm a very caring. I think I try to be very caring. It could come off a little hard, but I think I care a lot.
Sometimes tough love is part of it.
Exactly. Not even sometimes I'm gentle.
No, of course. I'm just saying.
Tough love is needed, though.
I would say caring. I would say caring, dedicated, and passionate.
Nice. Okay.
What about you?
I think I'll also throw in passionate as well, because I think everything that I do is for a really specific purpose and a passion that I'm, really. It's everything I do is like that's my life. Like that is a purpose of my life. You know,
it lights you up. Yeah,
exactly. I'll also say like, I'm gonna say unserious, just in this, not that I'm unserious about the passion things, but on a day-to-day basis, like I just like to laugh. I like to be silly. I like to enjoy, and like I don't like to be serious all the time. I like to talk shit. I like to laugh. Like that is my thing. And then outside of that, I think like I'll say, I don't know, like I like creative.
Oh, you're so creative.
You are
because I think outside.
Oh, you're very creative.
You're so creative.
I guess very creative would be the other point, because like as much as I like creative could be skewed to like writing and what I guess like people might.
No, she's good at everything. Like she like crochets things and paints
have a couple other like hobbies under the.
Do you know what it takes to put together an anthology, and not just one but 3? Bitch.
I'm tired.
And she crochets shirts.
That's like
I crochet a lot of things, not just shirts.
Okay, well,
I crochet in
but like
general.
her shirts are crazy.
It's one of my hobbies. Like I picked up crocheting a few years
Creative
ago.
Is a great
that's
great
a good word.
Descriptive word for you.
Yeah,
definitely.
I've done like everything, honestly. I used to draw, I used to paint, I did clay work, and now I crochet. And I'm trying to learn knitting, but it pissed me off the other day, so I kind of gave up.
But nonetheless, I think those like really amazing words, and I can attest to all those because you guys are. I know both of you see decently well. I feel like well enough, and I love you guys. And this was like really great. I'm really really happy to have you, Shiv. Like,
thank you so much for having me as your first one for the video. I'm so.
We need like a question though. Like we need like a segue, like a final question, like a culturally
relevant question.
Yeah, but like I don't want to do like curry chicken versus chicken curry because that's like that's shit. But what is it for you though?
Question?
Yeah, like curry chicken versus chicken.
Well, she's Trinidadian.
It's gonna be curry chicken.
Yeah, okay, well then there we go. But I didn't want to do that. That's like so cliche.
It is so cliche.
So it's cringe a bit. Okay, but
what about? Okay, here's a good question, and I always wonder this with people.
Okay,
if you were to think about, and I don't know if this is just showing my age, and I would love to hear your answer to this too. When you think about Soca, and you think about it, let's say when you were growing up to now, do you have 2 artists that you feel like really represent Soca for you then and now? Because I do. So like I am like a Kes girl through and through. Zoom in on my shit. I am a Kes girl through and through, and I know them and I love them, and I will text you this clip, Hans, when it comes out because I love you guys so much. But I love Kes, and I feel like they represent for me. Like these people have been making bangers, bro, for 20 years, dude. Like that is really a great representation of Soca for me. It's like groovy Soca, power Soca, all these things. I love Kes so much. But when I think about Soca in this generation, I love Nyla Blackman so much.
Oh, she's amazing.
She just represents so much for me. I love her voice. I love everything she does. I love the video, everything. Like it just is so. When I think about like Trinidad, I think about Nyla Blackman. Like it's just that's what it is for me in this
very
generation.
Versatile, yeah.
Yeah. So do you? I don't know. Like, do you have then 2 that you think about?
Then and now. Like, I just feel like I think of, like, the classics. Like, you know, like
Destra.
Like, no, not even, like, you know those, like, they were, like, all the wedding tracks. Like, Hot and Groovy. Like, those, what was the guy's name? Like,
Militant.
Militants, yeah. Militants and, like, those.
Yeah.
Is he?
Mm-hmm. That's fine.
Awkward.
He can be Guyanese, that's fine.
Yeah, but, like those kind of...
silent?
Like, those kind of songs. Like, those, like, real, like, childhood songs.
Yeah. Like,
those
Jump
ones,
and...
Yeah, like, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily say I have a specific
like a person.
artist.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I have a person... But I would say, like, that genre, like, that era, fair. Because, like, music was always a big thing in my family.
Yeah,
like,
same.
Music was, like, major. And, like...
What about now?
Now? It's, like, a represent... Like, what do you mean, though? Like, a representation
I just mean, like, when I think about, like, if there's a song that comes on and I'm never skipping it... Like, I'm never skipping...
Anything lyrical.
Oh, I love lyrical,
Zoom in on my shit. Okay? Anything lyrical.
Come on this podcast.
Yeah, I met him... one time at Miasia. If you know, you know.
That's amazing.
Do you know Miasia? If you know, you know.
Okay.
If you know, comment down below.
Okay.
If you know, you know. But I just love him and I love his music.
I love
just feel
lyrical
like he's
too.
He's
That's
like
fair.
probably my number one always, and I just like in love with him. And then I don't know, like back in the day, I would just say like obviously
those like iconic
traditional,
songs.
like just those iconic songs.
Fair.
Because
that's fair.
Literally, they just bring this childhood feeling. I don't know.
So
it's
true.
It's so warming.
Do you guys know that song "Street Controversy" by Gail Ann?
Sing it.
It's like street controversy. Just listen to me. Everybody here just start jumping.
Yes.
So that song for me and my cousins, that's like our childhood like song. Like I love that song. So when I think of nostalgia, childhood nostalgia, it's that song. And like a lot of Marshall songs too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but
Marshall's a go. But
he really
What
is,
about
but-
you, Tiara?
I don't really have a strong opinion on this one because if I'm being honest, like don't crucify me. I don't really listen to a lot of soca.
But that's okay.
That's okay.
That's a
But
part of the Indo-Caribbean
That's
experience.
like people. I don't really like chutney, and I
See,
think
I
people
like-
think I'm crazy, but I really just don't vibe. Like it's like I'll listen to it if it's at a wedding or whatever.
Yeah, at a wedding or something.
But I'm not like putting it on in the car, and I feel like so
I
many of my
do.
friends do
She
that.
does. Oh my gosh, she's like she wants.
So
Okay,
that's okay. So we're the opposite there.
When
That's
I-
okay.
But that's like a Trinidadian thing too. Like a lot of
Maybe.
Trinidadian people are more soca. I feel like.
Yes, we are.
Guyana is
But
more
I mean,
chutney.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm a
that's fair.
healthy mix. Like, okay, there are
Well, you are
some.
mixed.
Yeah,
There are like
literally.
things like when I think of my childhood, like sure, there's like a couple like songs that here. The thing is, I just don't know them as like well. Like I don't really know.
That's okay.
Off the top, like who the artist. But
But
if
what
I
about
know the song
what about
when I hear
chutney?
it.
Or what's like
Chutney is really classic for me because it makes me think of like riding
Babla,
around with my grandma.
Kanchan,
Yeah, like
yeah.
she had her
the
tapes, like her
classics.
physical cassette tapes
cool.
that she would like in her like she had this big like gray van. That
That's
was, like,
amazing.
she drove that thing to the dirt. Like she drove that gray van until it actually couldn't drive anymore. And I grew up really close with like my mom's mom, like because she
Stop.
you know she had
You're gonna make
me
me cry. I'm
she-
thinking about my grandpa.
Same.
took care of like
know
she
those
basically took care
ones.
of me like when my parents were at work and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
I grew
yeah,
up
yeah.
really close with her. And I'd be riding around with my grandma in the summer and like she
Just
would have
blasting,
her
yeah.
Kanchan
Oh my
tapes
God.
on.
That's
and that
fine.
was for me, that was a big
That is
part of
major.
like my childhood.
I'm gonna
That's
start
awesome.
crying, guys.
But like my parents were, I think because when they were young and too, like they also came here like really early when they were kids and stuff. Like the
Oh.
bigger part of my childhood that I would think of is like classic hip hop and R&B because that was more so what I grew up
Cool.
around is like those
and I
kind
think
of
that's
tracks.
like
yeah.
so important though, right? Like a lot of us, like like even for me, it was like a mix up of everything, which is like probably why I had a major identity crisis, like
Yeah.
10 to 18 years old. But
Yeah.
like no, and I think that's like such a great way to also like close out that question as well because I think that's a big thing. Like a
Yeah.
lot, just because like as like obviously it's a great question because a lot of us are connected to that part of us, but I think it's a big part of a lot of Indo-Caribbean women that it just shows all the experiences,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Like,
your unique
That's your
experience.
unique experience,
Because
and that doesn't
I
make
will
you less
say-
Indo-Caribbean because you didn't.
we'll see. Sometimes I
listen to,
grapple
like-
with that because I know everyone will be talking about soca and like
Yeah,
what's going
yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And I'm here like, oh my god, like I'm really on my way to work listening to like I listen to a lot of 80s like rock and pop.
Yeah, she does.
So I'm like, oh, I'm just listening. Like
I just
my
by
headphones
the way,
are
I
like
just
Guns N' Roses. And,
I just
like, Def
downloaded the
Leppard.
De La Soul album, so you're not alone.
That's what I'm saying, right? And
Don't
I
worry
think
about
with
it.
that, I
I
think the
love De La
most
Soul.
beautiful thing is that to segue into the final thoughts,
The final-
as
yeah,
an
we're supposed to be
Indo-Caribbean
wrapping
woman,
up.
I know we would. This is that.
Oh, we'll never end this podcast.
I know,
Cheers.
cheers. Cheers. But yeah,
keep
no,
going.
literally, honestly, I think that that's the most beautiful thing. And I think that was really cool about this conversation where like we all really do bring a different perspective. And I appreciate you being like honest about that and saying that because it could have been like, you were probably like, oh my God, I know Loki over there. You were thinking, what am I going to say?
I was
like,
really
am I going to
thinking,
be
like,
honest right
I
now?
was like,
who
wonder
do I
if
know?
they'll
Who do I know?
I
Who do
was
I know?
really like, I wonder if they'll just talk and forget.
Yeah, forget
that I'm here.
But like, you know,
I
I
like
don't
that
have
you
an
said
opinion.
that.
And I'm like, exactly. I love that you said that because it's very true. Like
That's
to
fair.
be Indo-Caribbean is not just being stuck in a box and it has to look a certain way.
We're
and it has
not
to feel a certain-
monolithic. We're not
Exactly.
Yeah.
Liberation.
I'll say it like right now, like if you're like an Indo-Caribbean person who really likes like video games and like rock and stuff like that, like please holla at me because we can be friends.
Literally, yeah.
I don't know enough gamers, like Indo-Caribbean gamers. Like
I do.
girls.
I can.
I need girls who
You
play
can connect-
games.
I can connect you to people.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
need
'cause
girls
that's
who
not
game
me.
because I
It's
don't
not
really know
me. I
any.
can't.
And yeah, Ashley,
I can't
I'm
do
not a
that.
gamer, but I
that
can
one.
connect you to girls. For sure.
Oh, yeah, you're in
Yes, please.
tech.
I know people that are gamers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, we're gonna take this offline,
Moving on.
but shout out to DJ Dubes, Lumi Studio. filming us right
Thank
now.
you
We cannot
so
forget
much.
about him.
Did an
He's
amazing job.
Made this very easy for us. And last but not least, Shiv, shout out your contacts, shout out your socials.
sure.
So
your newsletter, like talk about the
everything.
newsletter.
Yeah,
sure
so you
too.
can follow me on every social platform at LIVESHIV, Live Shiv, and then TikTok is with 2 V's at the end because someone took my username. And then my newsletter is called Learn Shiv, so LEARN Shiv, SHIV. It's a separate Instagram account, and then if you go there, you can find my Beehive account where you can subscribe to the newsletter. It comes out every Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how I feel. Yeah, if you're interested in any of that, and also like you can DM me anytime about anything. I try my best to be there for anybody that follows me. If you have any questions about tech or life or whatever, modeling, whatever, I try to be there. And don't sleep on LinkedIn either. Like, be active on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. If I can help you, if I can review your resume or come up with interview questions for you or whatever, I'll do whatever I can. So message me anytime, and I'm looking forward to meeting you all on that platform.
Yay! And with that being said, we finally get to say this. Like, comment, and subscribe to the Brown Gyal Diary page. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my God, I can't believe we said like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, yay, good job, guys.
So you're like, yo, like, comment,
That's how you know
Subscribe on my shit.